the Mastermind call with the Dream Makers Network. Always exciting to do these calls on Saturday mornings. One, to be able to connect with folks throughout the country on the purpose of personal development. This is always awesome just to be able to hear from folks who have been committing themselves to the work of personal development, and truly just being able to take a step back from all of the things that you're committed to, all of the responsibilities, everything that you have going on throughout the week and throughout this past month, to put that to the side for a second and you really go inward and be in a position to learn more about what it is that you can do to help take your life from where it is to where you want to be. And on top of that, being able to connect with other folks who are also going through that same journey, but have the spirit of personal development at the core of their being. For those of you who are on the call for the first time, we welcome you. My name is Byron Deese, founder of the Dream Makers Network, and we've hosted this mastermind call since 2012. On Saturday mornings early, particularly Eastern times at 7 a.m. But I know some of you guys are in other time zones, so we truly thank you for connecting with us. And then even for those who will find us later on the recorded line, and able to see us on social media or catch us throughout this program. It's always exciting to be able to do this, as we over the years have, from one person to the next, and some of these folks we didn't know, throughout our working life or family, but the spirit of personal development, wanting to go from where you are to where you want to be, that in of itself is its own unique energy that you can, outside of all of the things that you're doing, taking care of your families and your business and your community and your, just your own inward and personal relationships, that you do have this objective of, I'm here right now, but I have a goal to get somewhere else. And here's the why, the why behind what you do. Sometimes you're the only person who knows those ideas. Sometimes it's just you. You haven't found a network or close, a network of folks or a covenant partner or somebody who can connect with you on those type of goals. And so we try to really create this type of call for people just like you, who can say, I've been thinking about that, but, I don't like to share too much with other folks because, for whatever reason, I don't trust people. People will take my goals. Maybe I'm not really looking for an accountability partner, whatever the reason why you've taken that approach. Over the past, 13 years, we have truly tried to make this place a safe space for that objective, for people like you who've said, I actually do have a lot of goals. I have ideas I'd like to, put to work, but I've tried it a couple times and, it just didn't work out for me. I'm not trying to, stretch myself too far where I'm away from all the things that matter to me, and, whatever excuses that have come up to slow you down in your process to pursue the things that matter to you. And for the purposes of this call, we really want to at least begin the process of thinking about what a mastermind means and how does it relate to you pursuing the goals that you've set for your life. And a mastermind essentially is when 2 or 3 people come together in the spirit of harmony, that the collective energy, the collective mind, is how Napoleon Hill outlines it. The collective mind will help you to access information that you probably would not have been able to access on your own. Because when you have the like-mindedness of your network, the people who've kind of come together with the singular objective, and this objective is personal development. Personal development, identifying where you are right now and where you're trying to go, and the steps and the ideas and the people and the willingness and the work that you will do daily, intraday, the thoughts that continue to circle in your mind about progress and growth and accomplishing the goal, like those types of things is what, and when it's one thing when you do it, it's another when you have a network of other folks doing it with you, and everyone is focused on personal development. And so I think it's just always a really cool strategy. I mean, I think this call in and of itself is like a social science project to see what happens. What happens when you join a call, you've lined up your thoughts, you've kind of, pushed all the other things that you have to do, and responsibilities away, and just came together for the purpose of growth and development, to get your mind lined up. And to add to that, even when you decide, yes, I'm definitely focused on making sure I can get there, but then you open your ear to listen to other people as they begin to talk about what they're working on. And your spirit is still in that realm of personal development, but then you hear someone say something that you actually may have an answer to. You've had experience in that space. You can actually say, you know what, let me share something with you. Here's what I experienced a couple years back, or I work with some folks, or my clients are doing this and that, and it's very similar to what you just said you're working on. Let me give you some steps there. That connection, that willingness in and of itself, not only is of value to the person you supported, but then that energy comes right back to you. And then as you're beginning that process of thinking about, man, I am trying to actually accomplish a certain goal and looking for that next step. And before you know it, the ideas are flourishing, or somebody is able to invest in your life. So you just, and I, one thing about this, we've been doing this for a long time now, excuse me, but it's so interesting. If you've never been through a part of a network like this, and you've never attempted, really a serious objective of goal setting, sometimes you say, yeah, I have a goal and hopefully one day I'll hit it. And you kind of, dance around it, and some great things could happen. But there's a different piece when you make decisions to pursue goals, when you actually really look at it almost like a formula. If I do this, this, and this, here's what the expected outcome will be. And sometimes when you go down this road, yeah, you may have a very specific thing that's in your brain that you said, I want to accomplish, boom, this. But then you start down the process of pursuing the goal, of learning, of connecting, sharing, doing all of the things that line up with personal development, growth, and pursuing a goal, that the universe just creates all types of opportunities that were completely off of your radar, was not something that that you even knew was possible. But now it is in your realm. Now it's actually in the scope of possibilities. And I think it's we in that kind of a situation, it's good for us to just be open to what's possible, versus saying, well, Byron, it needs to be exactly like this. And there are some people who, just have a very particular about what they're pursuing. And if it's not a certain way, it could throw their energies off. If it's not a certain way, it could be a good thing sitting right there in their lap. But because it's not exactly the way you kind of outlined it and you thought about it and you planned it, it could throw your energies off and wipe out all of the gains that you just picked up. And so, I think it's important to kind of share that, because in this process of goal setting, of opening up your mind and your heart to opportunities that you may not have been open to before, and adding in kind of the willingness to do more than you usually do. And when I say do more, it's that conversation around, am I working hard or am I working smart? And sometimes when you hear the word do more, or that phrase do more, you think, here we go. I got to start. What you want me to work, 18 hours a day or something? No. What we're saying is the willingness to pursue what you have outlined and committed to, and then begin that process of reading, of sharing, of picking up a phone, like making steps toward the goal. Steps toward the goal. And even though some of those steps, especially if you're learning those steps from people who have already done what you're trying to do, and they've done it very successfully. So it's like one of those kind of situations where, who do you listen to? Who am I getting my information from that's helping me to pursue my goals? If you're reading books, you're getting access to information that is of the greats relative to the thing that you're focused on, whether it be, relationships or business or your spiritual life or the community work or whatever the case may be. Who do you listen to? What information are you getting? Where is it coming from that you're now using as a guide to help you get from where you are to where you want to be? And that is such an important part of the mix because I can tell you there's so many times when you ask the question, who do you listen to? And if the answer is you listen to the people who have what you want. And so many times we listen to people we may value. We listen to people who may have, great experience. You listen to people who you love. But do they have what you want? Are they successful at the thing that you are pursuing right now? That part is so important, a massive piece of the formula to make sure that you're not getting bad information that could send you down a road that is far from what you have intended, what you're pursuing. And so for the purposes of this call, we just want to make sure that when personal development, when that topic is even brought up, that you know that it does require objectives. It requires the willingness, number one, to pursue it. It's not just something that's just going to dance around in your mind and you get excited when you think about it. And it's just like, okay, this is great. All these different things, but you never actually pursue it. You never do, take that first step to pursue the goal, to pursue the objective. It's just something you think about. Maybe you've read about, maybe you've, had conversations with other people, but you haven't taken the first step to actually move in the direction. And especially that next step of actually creating a cohort, a network of other like-minded people who want to see you succeed. And now I will say, there are a lot of folks who will say, I don't know who really wants to see me succeed. Everybody wants something, right? And yeah, everybody wants something. And hopefully you have identified a group of people who want to see you succeed because they know your success also feeds on them. If you're hanging around successful people, you are next in line. So that is, in many ways, part of that cocktail, if you will, of things that are necessary as you're working, focusing, not giving up on your goals, not giving up on your dreams, and actually doing the work to pursue them. 2 or 3 people come together in the spirit of harmony. That is just a very, I would say basic line of what is necessary to build the mastermind and begin that process of adding all of the goals, dreams, ideas, things that matter to you to that mix, and sit back and see what happens. When I say sit back, I mean enjoy the ride, participate in the process, and watch what comes into your life, the new people, the new opportunities, and how you begin to react. What's your response to opportunity? What's your response to what's possible? And learn something about yourself, because if it's a new process for you, then it could be the case that you have to really train your mind to be willing to accept new opportunities that could add value to your life. And so we're thankful for so many of you who are connecting with us this morning for the first time. We're just more than excited to hear from you, to connect and share. And hopefully this isn't the last time that we come together here on this mastermind call. Well, I will say, for those of you on the call for the first time and you're maybe not familiar with this program, particularly during the summer, where we host our 90-day goal setting challenge, where much of what we just discussed, where we have intentionally marked Memorial Day to Labor Day, summertime, as our 90 days of focusing on goal setting and being able to come back on the call, talk about what we're working on, what's worked, what didn't work, what did I try, how did it fail, or what's worked, how did you gain it, how are things, what's your process, give me the drama. Like, the drama is what helps. The drama is what helps these things, so you can begin to just say, it was crazy, but let me tell you what happened. And it builds the story. It flushes out some of the details even for you. You may not have even shared with other folks yet about some of these successes. Because again, some people may say, well, that's not a success. I've done that a whole bunch of times. You have those people who they won't even allow you to just, celebrate for a second before they got to jump in and be, oh yeah, me too. Let me tell you about it. Like, can you just relax and let me just enjoy the fact that I'm making some progress? Can you be of support to what, I'm sharing with you right now? So it's good to know if you got people like that in your life who are just, they can't even let you shine for a second, right? So here we want you to shine, right? We want you to come on here, dive in with all the things that you're working on, what you've identified as a success, how you started the process. And I would say also, I think this is a good time, especially during this 90-day goal setting challenge, if we can at least just kind of communicate one or two things that you identify as an accomplishment, something that it's been on your mind to pursue, you pursued it, and you gained some steps toward it. Maybe you haven't fully accomplished it yet, but you say, you know what, I wasn't doing this last month. I was thinking about it, but I'm actually doing this now. Look what I did. If it was a workout goal, and you were just thinking about it in May. May was just, yeah, okay, I'm gonna get to it. And then in June, here's what you actually did. Those things are worth celebrating, especially if it is potentially becoming something of consistency, which consistency changes everything. Repetitious activity, especially if it's your goal, that consistency, whether you want to do it or not, it's just nonstop. I was actually of a friend who has been on this workout journey for several years, and she has really just committed herself to the good, the bad, and the ugly, and is willing to share that openly. And it's interesting. Over the years, I've watched, sometimes you see people post things and they leave in the comments, and you can tell as she's really showing and committing herself and going, showing the successes. Oh, look, I can wear these clothes now. Or the other days, like, I hate that I'm in the gym today. Look at my face. I'm so upset. And all of that drama that we were talking about, right? And then it's sometimes interesting when you see people in the comment section. I always go to the comment section. I don't know. It's like I'm a glutton for punishment, because the comment section is all on social media, any kind of social media, is always just like, you always see the wrong stuff, right? And you see people like, you need to go sit down somewhere. Like, oh, like, why would you say that to this? You need to go sit down, and I think you should have done it this way and that way. And I even got caught one time. I was like, oh, I said, man, I think you're great. You don't need to do anything. And she was like, whatever, boy. I got more work to do. I was like, oh, my bad. So, but it's just that whole piece of that's why some people don't even share, right? They're like, whatever. I don't want the drama. I don't want nobody coming for me. So, but I do think it's important to go back to that word willingness, it's one thing to say I'm trying to pursue a goal. It's another to start down that road, to be willing enough to be consistent at doing the work of accomplishing the goal, and then be about it enough to be on blast where other people are watching your process. Right? Because, and I want to emphasize that word process, because a process is not always a straight line. In the world of investments, we have these investment objectives. And the investment objective is to have double-digit returns for the purpose of capital appreciation, right? And so you start down, and I'm starting to invest my money. I gave you a lump sum. And then you see the world of the process, which means, yeah, our goal is to aim for the North Star, that double-digit return. But there are ebbs and flows. And so some people are, oh, you ain't winning. Like, look at you. Like, you done gained weight. It's like, you was talking about you want to start that business. Like, you back to work for that person now. Like, how does that happen? You was talking about you gave your life to Christ. What? I saw you at the club the other day. Like, all these people are just ready for, and that's the truth. Like, you have people who are watching, like, for whatever reason, right? But they're just paying attention heavy to what you have going on. And the thing that we have to really wrap our arms around is the process of personal development. That process, as much as we would love for it to just be a North Star climb up, like every day is progress. Every day is progress. I win, I win, I win. Like, you just keep doing it. The truth is, you have some rough, steep falls during that process sometimes that, for most people, and I want to just say this as honest and clear as I can say it, for most people, that will be it. That first big loss, that first, I'm pursuing it, but I didn't hit the goal, or, man, this was too tough. For some people, that's it. Done. I tried it. It didn't work. It's over. For most people. The purpose of this call, I want to make sure that we recognize that failure is part of the process. It's part of the process. I mean, how are you going to learn? You know what I'm saying? If you're winning every day, it's like, oh yeah, I'm good at this kind of stuff, right? But if when you fail, the question is, did you say, okay, man, that sucked. Okay, got it. Like, what am I going to do? What did I learn from that? Like, that sucked. That was not a good look. What did I learn from that? How am I able to at least ask the question, what went wrong? Some people don't even ask that question because they don't even want to deal with, like, this, just that sensitivity of ego, if you will. and say, it's too painful. I don't even want to rethink the fact that that person told me no. I don't even want to think about the fact that, I was on my workout and I decided not to go the next week. I was doing good, but I stopped about a week and a half, and you know what? I think I'm better off just not doing this. I don't want to think about it because it makes you stare that loss or that failure in the face. And I'm here to say that that's just part of the process. It's just part of the process. Same as you had a goal. You were trying to do 20,000 this month. You did 25,000. What happened? Like, how'd you do it? Like, what did you do differently that allowed you to, close $25,000 worth of business when you're usually a 7,000 monthly person, right? What are you doing different? What did you do? Who'd you talk to? Who was the person who said, yes, I want to do business with you? And matter of fact, let me give you all I got. And plus I got some friends want to talk to you. How did that even come about? Flush out the details. What's the drama of the win? What's the drama in that piece? Like, how did it happen? So have that conversation with yourself then. So if you're willing to have the conversation when you're winning, you also got to be prepared to have the conversation when you didn't win. I'll never forget this. I remember for the rest of my life. I was probably like 16, 17, maybe junior, senior high school, somewhere in there. And we were doing all kind of stuff in high school. And we had especially in performing arts, like our gospel choir, and we used to go around to all these different churches, and I mean, it was just a big deal. And we have like a bunch of people in the choir, and I remember, to this day, I remember my granddad. He was like, well, that was good. You did a great job. I was like, thank you. He was like, listen, keep doing what you're doing. But if you're going to accept all the good things that people say about you, you also got to be prepared to accept the bad stuff they say. And I was like, just thinking, and I remember at that particular moment, I remember exactly what the suit I had on, like the clothes, like everything. I was feeling really good about myself. Really good. And when he said it, it just stuck. Because it wasn't long after that, I started to hear the rumblings, of this, that, and the other. And people who I truly trust were, throwing knives, at a kid in high school, right? And I think if he hadn't said that to me, I would have definitely handled some of those dagger attacks differently. And so at a very young developmental age, I had to kind of be faced with that. And so this is just one of those situations where if you're committed to a process of growth, that you just have to embrace the wins and the losses. Just embrace it. Everybody has their own little process that, I say this is a good point as I'm thinking about this. A lot of people have their process of what they do when they are upset or going through, or just what am I going to do to just release and kind of make myself feel better. Question is, what do you do when you succeed? Like, what is your, I'm going to take care of myself today. Like, or what's your pat on the back thing? Like, and who are you hanging with? Like this, when I say gather the drama, I mean, like, really, like, get it all together, because what we're really trying to avoid is the lack of consistency. We want to put you in a position when you start having these wins and losses, and you're saying, all right, this is what, but even with the win and loss, you're saying, I'm going to gain from this. 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 Because you don't want wins to be one off either. You want your losses, like, okay, I hope I don't have to go through that one again, right? but you definitely do not want to find yourself in a situation where what we call like the Al Bundy syndrome. Like when I was in high school, I used to really win, and you don't haven't had any wins since high school, right? We want to make sure that when you win, you grab the good from the win, own it, so you can take it with you to the next opportunity. Take it with you as you're pursuing the next goal, and celebrate wins. I mean, I can't even begin to highlight how important celebrating wins are, because in that situation, you get excited to do it again. You get excited to do it again. You get excited to do it again. And so let's take a second. I would love to just open up the call to anyone who's willing, ready to just talk about some of the wins. And, let's definitely highlight one or two things that you've done in the month of June that worked. Like this, I set out to do something. Here's what I did. Even if it wasn't the big win, but you see that you did something consistent. You started, you head in the right direction, and you identify. You may not have shared it with anybody else yet, but you identify this as a win. And I want to make sure that once you say it, you verbalize it. It's out there. We heard it, the universe heard it. So it's out there, and it begins to. There's something about saying things that you could possibly go back and hear again, or somebody could ask you about. That is a certain level of accountability that a lot of people are like, I don't want nobody checking me for good stuff or the bad stuff, right? But for the purposes of this 90-day goal setting challenge, I'm hoping that we can begin to kind of stare some of those normal fears and say, whatever, like, I'm blowing through that. This is what I've been working on. This is what I did. Here's something I'm proud of, and outline that. And if you want to pepper in a little drama in it, even if there was some things that was a little off, but you still got to, the goals that you were working on, share that as well. So we'll take a second, open up the call now to anybody who'd love to share about a couple wins that you've had in the month of June, what you gained, what you learned. Let's take a second and open up the call now. And same for our folks who are online as well. Please.
Hello, this is Rosanna.
Good morning. Morning.
My win is I rested. Good morning. I rested. Like, I feel like that was such a huge win. I came to the vineyard with friends and family. Family is what I call y'all. And that was amazing. And it was amazing for so many reasons for me personally. I never thought I wanted to go, first of all. Like, the level of bouginess that I was associated with that lifestyle had everything to do with, of course, how I was raised. I'm raised blue collar. My family, I don't know what a vacation really is. You know what I mean? Like, we just go back and forth to Maryland, which I'm on my way right now. But to really, like, rest, to sit, to be intentional about getting somewhere remote for the purpose of resting and unleashing or unlatching, that was key for me. And it gave me a clarity. I've been carrying a lot for all of my life, but certainly in the last year, it gave me some clarity around what my actual needs were, as well as my access to who I am and who God has placed me around and what He put in my heart. He gave me access to, like, see it in real time. And it just shifted what I had been doing and how I had been doing it. And so it was a very timely shift. And the biggest response from just that shift, one, I've been on a road journey my whole life. It's another whole life situation. But I made a commitment to myself, and I followed that commitment. I also recognize how freeing not having someone wholly relying on me was, and how what I needed. So I came out and give my mom the business. So we started with the home care nurse last week or the beginning of this week. And the situation happened. It was like, no, this is absolutely necessary. And I was able to say to my mom, I want to like you. I want to enjoy you. And doing what we're doing right now is not allowing that. And my resent is growing. And I'm not getting my needs or my goals professionally met. And I can't go backwards. And so being able to stand in that and create a pathway and a solution to make that work was very freeing, and that passion and that ability was birthed in this being away and still, and again touching and being with my people. When I got to the ferry, my boy Ine called was like, "Oh, yo, okay, so tomorrow I'm gonna need you to do the interviews." I was like, "Negro, I am leaving right now." I told you 2 months ago that I was gonna be here. And he said, "Oh man, I would have used you next week." I was like, "Bro, we gotta work on this communication." So in that, I hit him back like, "Listen, I'm ready to start working my documentary, and this is what I need from you." You know what I mean? And so again, that's like I'm doing the work. I've been doing the work, but having the time away and the connection to was like everything for me. So I just feel like I'm in a really good space. And right now I'm really struggling because I'm getting ready for my convention in the last week or two. I just been packing for DC, and I'm just really feeling, I don't know what I'm feeling. I'm feeling a lot of things because there's so much going on in the country, and I'm just like, I feel ridiculous with a car full of clothes. When people are losing the possibility of losing benefits and access to things that they need for their life. And so, like, I just feel like there's something happening, and I don't know where I'm going to be in the unveiling of the ways to counteract and bring awareness to those things. I'm super hyper aware. So I would say, like, a part of that trip was just really pushing my hyper awareness into action, not just being aware to anxiety, but aware to action. And that's again where I need to be right this moment as everything is happening around me. So thank you for the invite and all of the things. Hey
I
y'all.
love what you just said, about being hyper aware, but recognizing the difference between being aware that leads to anxiety versus awareness that leads to progress, and especially when there are things going on, emotional, personal, professional things going on that you are clearly aware of, but where is it taking you? And so that is an important piece that you just shared, because there are a lot of people who completely shy away from awareness because of it's going to take you somewhere. And if there's a history of awareness taking you to anxiety and depression, then I don't even want to be aware at all. Like, I'm just going to dodge all of that stuff, So, but I will tell you, and I'm so glad that you kind of opened up, because Ty was with us. We went to the vineyard, to Martha's Vineyard last week or 2 weeks ago for Juneteenth. And so it was, I'm glad that experience, one, you were able to kind of take that as a resting opportunity. I will say, we watched you work out every day, right? Early with chickens, right? And so that in and of itself is what you identified as rest. We watched you working. So it highlights that people are at different spaces, and one man's rest is another person's busyness, right? And so, but it was also great to be able to spend that time, one, not having to be on the scene and extra and doing stuff, but you could actually spend that time and highlight, what does rest really mean? Now, sometimes we talk to folks and we start asking about, like, how do you rest? They're like, what? What? Rest? How does that work? Like, So to be able to at least be able to articulate and do rest, what does that look like for you? May not like the same thing for other people. Some folks, I mean, rest means I'm under the covers all day and I didn't take a shower. For other people, rest means, I was able to do things that I don't get a chance to do that I enjoy, that, you know, refills my cup or whatever the case. And each day having a process that pursues rest. And so, yeah, I will say I was proud of you, because as we were out, and like you said, folks were trying to, kind of, oh, well, what are we going to do? We pull you into this. But to be able to get right back to your own routine of rest, I think that is definitely a plus. And I took pictures of some of y'all resting right when I was like, oh, everybody, all y'all sleep, huh? Oh, everybody sleep right now, right? So, but it was a good time to be on the vineyard for Juneteenth, celebrating just the beautiful Black people and just celebrating our history. And it was my first time there for Juneteenth, which was good to see just kind of the flow of Oak Bluffs during that time of year. And definitely looking forward to more opportunities like that going forward, to one, rest and recharge and the whole nine. So appreciate you, Ty. So wait, so you're on your way now to DC? Ty, you said, okay. Yeah, so
I'm on my way.
All right, be safe, enjoy, have a good time. Hit us up, keep us posted. All right. Anybody else? Let's jump on. Anybody else want to jump in, talk about some of the things that you have identified as a win in the month of June? What did you do? What happened? Why is it a win? Like, let's highlight it. Let's take a second and open up the call now.
I'll say something really quickly. Hey, Baron. Hey, everybody.
Morning.
Daddy. Good morning. I really like that idea of awareness for action, because I was sitting here and thinking, when I looked at my 90-day goals, I'm rethinking them to some extent, because, I've been thinking about all that's going on in society today, and, the recent Microsoft cuts and all of that stuff. And, with all that's happening, I still feel like there's more to come. And for me, the last few weeks have been sort of looking at finances and really cutting back. And, in one breath, it could look like, a negative, right? Because I had all these goals that, were attached to spending. But, when I look at it with a different lens, what it's helped me do is it's helped me cut out sort of the unimportant stuff, right? So the frivolous stuff. And almost, gotten me to a position where now when I'm spending, I know that I'm spending because it's important to spend, right? Not just spending because, the money is there, but, sort of a more prudent approach in spending. So I was thinking about, how do I even say that the goals that I had, I'm not pushing on them like I thought I would be. But it's back to that awareness for action, right? So because I'm aware of environmental changes and the fact that I don't know what tomorrow is going to look like, I'm now tightening my belts, in areas where there were leakages, for lack of better words, and now being more intentional, deliberate, on every quarter that leaves my pocket, right? Which is ultimately where I want to be as a business person, right? Not just spending because I have it, but spending because, you must, right? What are those three things that you must do today, in order to be successful or reach your goal or whatever the case is? So I appreciate that language around, awareness for action. And so that's sort of where I am.
No, I'm glad you shared that, because it is that always that question between the difference of spending versus investing. And this is a conversation I have a lot of times, with clients and even myself around, is this spending or is this investing? Sometimes in the framework of investing, we think, oh, well, I put my money here and I'm expecting a rate of return. Or maybe people just look at things more so from just the type of account and vehicles, like, oh yeah, I bought a house and it's being rented, or I put money in a stock or a mutual fund and for the purpose of growth. But then we have that question of, are we spending, and was it frivolous or was there an objective around it? And it's so interesting, because when we start thinking about where our money's going and what is the hope, the outcome of it, what do we hope we're actually getting ready to gain because we just purchased this? And it has to be in a situation where we can see, at least intrinsically. Everybody else may say it as pure spending, like, man, what was that all about? But to you, it was, I purchased that because I know what's getting ready to come. This is more marketing expense. Like, we start thinking about, and that's why one thing I share with a lot of folks of, what does marketing look like? And that's the reason why a lot of corporations, some of them don't even like having a marketing division, because they're like, well, how do I know I'm going to make my money back? How do I know this is an investment, or am I just, putting money out? That's why some folks aren't even charitable, because if they don't have, like, other than the tax write-off, is it providing me with a end goal? And so it's important for us to kind of frame in our thoughts what's the difference between this kind of variable, I just want to do what I want to do spending, versus, no, this is going to provide me something. It's what, I remember just I got this one particular client who, they are literally pushing 80, and they have done a great job of saving and all this stuff over the years. And I'm like, well, okay, you did it. Hooray. What is this all for? Like, what was that? Think about it. Let's go back 30, 40 years. Why did you save this money? You live this scaled down lifestyle. You're happy, this, that, and the other. Did you save all of this money for the purpose of your kids, so you can give it to them? Did you save it because you want to have an active retirement lifestyle? Did you save it because you want to buy some other things? Like, what was it for? And what that question kind of starts is, every dollar that you have has a job, has a goal. And so if that means you need to actually title, like, say, hey, 10% of this money is for church. 25% of this money is for just random spending. Another 25% of this money is for bills. Another 15% is for investing. Another 10% is for travel. Like, so now everything has an account. Like, every dime that you have has a specific job and goal. So for people who, almost like some of my OCD folks who say, well, I don't know, wait a second. Now you can look and see everything that you have, every dollar that comes in has an objective. Now you can tell when, that objective has been spent. And now you're asking yourself, all right, am I going to rob from Peter to pay Paul, or am I just done and I'm not able to do that anymore until that bucket is refilled? And so, and I think it does help just from a visual and a thought process around money of what's spending and what's investing. And it helps to kind of at least bring some peace in your spirit around, this was proper spending, because it was intended to do exactly that. Now you can, question the things that you spend on. You can question that and say, well, did I need that ice cream? Did that help at all? Or just say, no, that is an important piece of my therapy, right? Or whatever the case may be. So you can question and kind of do your own inventory of what should stay and what should be kicked out. But at least that every dime that I bring into this house has a job. It goes into this account, it goes into that one, and the part where for some of us who are really ambitious, and and you realize that I need more money for this account, for a certain account, because there's more to do than your budget will allow, then that's when the conversation around, okay, should I rob from Peter to pay Paul, or should I get some leverage to help me do some of those bigger things that I want to do? And that's kind of the cool conversation around money and access to capital and all that. But I think just from a basic perspective, it is definitely a good look to be able to say, okay, I know I have a 25% spending budget of my overall income. Let me, and outside of my bills kind of spending, let me just work that in a way that makes me feel good and bring some peace of mind to your spirit around all of that, just because now you have a proper account of it. And that account really comes down to, how do you feel about this process? And if you feel good about it, then everything works. But if you still say, I don't know, I'm still a little uneasy, then that means there's more work to do in terms of getting it to a place where you feel good about it. So, but I completely understand where you are and why that. And I will say to you, as it relates to the fact that you're looking at this as a win, is because the fact that it's awareness. That you're not just kind of going about this blindly, and every month you're like, what is going on with my budget? So I'm glad you said that, because I'm sure there's a lot of people on here saying, well, if that's a win, the fact that I'm now conscious of what's going on, then let me share my stuff, right? And that's the thing. We want people to be able to, a new, fresh mindset, thought process on your progress is how we can clearly identify that you're heading in the right direction toward setting the goals, accomplishing the goals that you set for yourself. So now I appreciate you sharing that, because we definitely need to, have a clear articulation on this, on how we're pursuing and what we identify as wins and not just frustration. So thank you. Anybody else? Let's open up the call. Anybody else have any questions, comments, want to add? This is what I've been working on. This is what worked. This is what I'm proud of. Let's just leave it at that, in that lane right now. Like, what you see was a win this past month that you were saying, I hadn't told anybody yet, but this is what I feel good about. This is what I did. This is what happened. So let's take a second and open up the call now.
This is Dana. How are you?
Dr. Truesdale, what's up, man? How are you doing?
Yeah. I am doing well. Okay, so 90-day challenges. I love these.
I know you do.
So one of the things that I've been trying to figure out is what I want to do with some property that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going back and forth. Do I want to live here? Do I want to not? Do I want to? But
there's some renovations that need to happen, and I just got so bombarded with things going on. There's a lot of moving parts in my life right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so last 90 days, actually last 2 weeks, I decided I might as well just have this thing. I might as well. Forgive me for saying this. Oh no, we're being recorded. I'm not gonna say it like that. But I decided to make it make money for me.
Got it.
You know what? I'm undecided. It could just be working, and so got all the paperwork in, got everything done. Got an architect on the helping me out with it, and we're just gonna rock it out while we're trying to figure it out. Just gonna turn it into an income property for right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what I've been working on, and then I get the bright idea. Oh, I could do a couple of these.
Hmm.
So I kind of have somebody looking out for some other ones, but this one, again, you know, I love birthday presents and gifting myself with things.
Hmm.
So that is my birthday thing. I'm gonna have this first income property, and I know I'm late to income properties, but have this first one done by my birthday.
When is your birthday?
That'll be my birthday present to me. September 5th.
Okay, all right.
And you know,
Love it. Labor Day.
I got a dental practice for my other birthday.
That's right.
So yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what's on the horizon for me, and hopefully we will, or not hopefully, it is so.
Yeah.
It is done. So that's the thing.
So let's go into the drama of it, right? So what kind of property? Short-term rental, long-term, mid-term? What type of property is this going to be? Income producing property.
I like the idea of short-term. It's in an area where the government goes into their sessions.
Okay. Yep.
Rent it out. It's not far from water, so people and it's got a lot of land. A lot meaning 2 acres.
Mm-hmm.
So it's space for people to have things, like just if they want to be there, like family reunions and all that stuff, and that's what that area really used to be used for, or that land used to be used for. So they would have large gatherings there. So it's an ideal place for that, and the fact that it's right down the street from Annapolis.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even have to get on the highway. So football games. What is it? What's the school there? The Naval Academy?
Yeah.
Graduations, all those things, all the events they have there. That's who we're going to market to.
I love it. You know, you just make me.
Military.
That's right.
I'm a big fan of military.
That's right. You just made me think about something though, because just yesterday, just yesterday, one of my clients was telling me about property that, you know, this in one of those markets that has multiple seasons, you know, so, but one season is different from another season. So in one particular season, say the summer season, it's just kind of prime for Airbnb, for short-term rentals. But in the off season, ideally, it needs to become kind of a midterm rental. And so kind of knowing how to market the property in those particular seasons. And then just yesterday he hit me up and said, man, hey, I just got a deal from November to April where it's going to be rented by a business person who's in town for that season. And then, but by the time the summer season's back, it's now ready to go for the Airbnb season. And that, you know, what you just kind of outlined, and especially when you think about General Session and Annapolis and, you know, folks who don't live in the area, and I know some of the drama around that too. Folks who are may not have, they live too far away to kind of drive back and forth. So they're needing a resource. That's definitely a market, where it's just, 5-10 minutes away from where they need to be during that part of the year, which is in Maryland is the winter season, and so, but once summer season's ready to roll, like you said, Airbnb, they, the family reunions. I mean, especially the fact that there's acres and there's things that you can do there. And just thinking about another client in Alabama who somehow or another just stumbled upon 76 acres, and the property on that property had an old, I would say a hotel, but has like maybe like 10 units that hadn't really been utilized in years, and went to the project, renovated the rooms, got everything up to code and up to snuff. And now it's just all about, well, who are we marketing this thing to? When you have that many acres, then now you're, just wildlife and gaming and so many different, opportunities to find some type of monetization. But then you figure out, hey, I probably need to develop some more. If I'm preparing for what I think I'm preparing for, I need to build more. I need to build more units, And so that's the reason why I was like, the real estate always brings some drama, and drama meaning, positive drama too, because once you build something, this is a lifelong asset, multi-generational asset that can add value and income and resources for families and businesses for ages. And so it's great to have that in your portfolio as a current and future in like generational asset. So just being creative at this stage and letting your brain just work as to what makes you excited about owning a property like that, and what the next steps could be, and really even taking one more step and say, what's my real earning potential with this thing, like on for real, and not just the unit that you have, but what's the real earning potential of the land and all of that. And even, I guess, even one more step to that. And I had a conversation the other day. Even like the current use today may not be the same use for that property in 20 years. It could be the case that in 20 years or even 10 years that you may say, this is actually where this is going to be my forever home, or this will at least be my Maryland, residence, if we will. And that, then, so when you think about that, then you think about it not as just pure commercial, but commercial that will transition into residential, and so that type of kind of, creative, I keep using the word drama, but just kind of looking at all the ideas that's possible, it just gives you an opportunity to assess how you feel about all of that. And if you get excited about it, you're on to something. You say, nah, I can't rock with that. Then you know what to check off your list. But it's great to put yourself in that position and to do all the necessary things to protect the asset from, in your portfolio for and make sure it's also all lined up for future generational, asset too. I'll tell you one last thing about this whole real estate piece, man. And I'll probably add that as one of my things that have worked this in June as well. Man, I just recently picked up a new client who inherited and has been the trustee of about 300 acres in Alabama. and it's a generational asset. So early, great uncle or somebody in that realm did the original development of some of the properties and that are on that, some of the buildings that are on that land. That was at once a school that became a Rosenwald School and was built because Booker T. Washington asked them to build this building for the purpose of it becoming a Rosenwald School, and he asked them to do that 3 years before Booker T. Washington died, and so it has become, and it was for several decades, a school for African Americans who couldn't go to the public schools in that area, because of Jim Crow. And so now this is an asset that is sitting there on that land. So then you ask the question, what's the value of a historical asset that has, historical value, but in the eyes of who? So who would see this as a very rich, beautiful, high valued asset, and who wouldn't? And so all of those different pieces becomes kind of part of that quote unquote drama of the details that helps you to assess how you feel about the asset, how you feel about what's happening and owning it and the whole nine, and could very well become very lined up with your long-term goals, your current, immediate, real-time goals. And, that's why I think it's just so, this actually does kind of blend really well into the whole topic of today of Me LLC, because, and I shared this out for the topic of this call today is Me LLC, because it's important for us to, number one, connect the dots between what we identify as our profit goals, income, compensation, profitable goals, and what we identify as purpose-driven impact. The things that we feel we're moving the needle on, not just your own personal, unique, specific goals, but the things that to you feel you're making a difference. The things in your eyes, you say, you know what, I did this today, and I feel like I made a difference today. In so many cases, when you talk to people, these are two different hats. The things where they feel like they made a difference, and some may say, I didn't make any money, but I made a difference, right? And I want to just make sure, for the purposes of this call, that we can actually say, no, you can be profitable and impactful at the same time if you are intentional around building, organizing, monetizing the thoughts, ideas, goals that you have in your heart and your spirit and your mind, things that you think about all the time, you may not share, and you may think there's no way I can make money doing this. And I'm pretty sure you will meet people who will say, not only can you not make money doing this, you shouldn't even think about making money doing this, right? And maybe there was a time in my life when I felt the same way, until I started meeting people who are multi-millionaires doing truly God-sent work, truly impactful, move the needle work. I mean, and not only that, there are, especially in times like this, when things are just changing, funding sources are changing, the needs are increasing, funding sources are changing because of administrations and all of that. There's so much need out there, and not enough people organizing their thoughts and their businesses and their operations to go do that work. And the truth, especially in a country like America, these kind of things the need is always going to be great. The question, the part to it is, and what we're seeing right now, going through right now, is just the funding source is changing. So the government may not fund things that they used to fund, but philanthropists are now repurposing their dollars to fill the void. And to add to that, they have the resources, they have the care and the willingness to want to be impactful in those areas, but they may not know subject matter experts who can actually do that work. And so that's where Me LLC comes in, where the work, this stuff, you have a passion for it, you understand it. You can speak about it with great brevity and detail and history, but you don't have the right structure to accept those dollars, whether it be government dollars or philanthropy dollars or or dollars from venture capital or whatever the case may be. But we have to look at these shifts and where we are. And we can get mad about it and say, no. We need to keep things the way it used to be. And, we just have to look at change happens. Question is, are we prepared to still be just as fired up and energized and committed to solving real problems and finding new funding sources to help that work, to help that go? And so I wanted to just kind of pepper that in there real quick because we are in a shifting time. We are there's so many different things that are happening today. Like real, some people, like even in this case of we had 4th of July yesterday. The day before yesterday, I don't think people even paid attention to the tax bill that was passed, which is a game-changing shift of a bill. Completely restructured the things that we kind of understand around funding and how things happen, how things move. But the reality is just going to hit and we'll feel it. We'll feel the change soon. And so I want to make sure that, as I was sitting there just reading the bill earlier this week, when there's the proposed bill and when it passed, I'm just sitting like, this is a shift. This is a game-changing shift. So now we got to be in a position to understand the things that we know, that we care about, and begin the process of filling the voids that's getting ready to happen. We're getting ready to see massive voids, organizations, especially things that we care about when it comes to whether it be really think about the disabled, the elderly, youth, education, all those things that you feel like are kind of safety net. People they don't have the wherewithal to do it for themselves yet, either because they're too young or they've already past their prime in age, and all those little pieces in our society, which used to kind of have a safety net from the government, those things are is not going to have those same type of resources. So, at least from the government perspective, so who's going to fill the void? And I always think about A.G. Gasson, and doing this, the African American businessman during the civil rights movement. His whole objective was find a need and fill it. That was his business entrepreneurship model. If there's a need in a community, be the resource. Start something, build it. If there's no grocery store, and there's a lot of folks here, and there's no interest in the city or business people to put something here, then we got to do it. We could try to, the same energy that we have in fighting for issues, we have that same energy in building something that can be a resource, that can sustain. We can have that same energy, shift that political energy into economic energy or socioeconomic, where you can do both at the same time. And being able to still have our eye on filling the gaps, on filling needed voids. And so I think that's part of this whole portfolio management conversation. And especially when we start talking about real estate and what you have access to. And that's why it's good to have these kind of conversations. And even when you start connecting the dots between your wants, your wishes, your portfolio, and the things that you currently do today, what do you do today that you know that you are an expert in, that if you could talk about it in your sleep, and it still be you could be groggy and halfway asleep, but if you said a couple of words, it's going to help somebody's situation. We need to look at that as just one of the greatest assets that we could ever have. And then the question then becomes, how do you take that bit of information and make it not only a generational resource for your portfolio, but how can you expand that and put it in the face of opportunities where you can reach the masses without burning yourself out, right? These are questions that we should be asking, because I'll tell you this, there are a lot of folks who may think about it, and then the thought, and this will say they're thinking about it with themselves or with a group of people who aren't in the same realm as them. Maybe they're friends or, and that kind of thing, and they're all in different spaces. And so you're not creating masterminds when you're having these kind of conversations. And it just makes you tired. Like, oh, you know what? I ain't dealing with that. That's crazy. But for the purposes of this call, we should feel confident enough in the power of personal development and creating masterminds to have a conversation like that could birth ideas during the time when we have it, doing it intentionally, just to see what happens, right? I mean, you use this time as a social science project just to see what happens, just to see if an idea pops out that you didn't know was even possible. And I want to add one more thing to that, and then we'll open up the call again for anybody like to share to this on this topic. I came to the realization maybe about a year or so ago when having conversations with clients, new clients, just about money in different realms of folks who in their and even with their wealth and the whole nine. Number one question for me always comes back to how much of the money that you earn is passive, that you didn't have to do anything for it to come. Or I should say, you don't have to do anything anymore. You did something one time or a couple of times, you built something, and it's just provided you income since. How much, what percentage of your monthly compensation is passive income? And I always try to have that type of conversation to slow things down, because you got folks who are, we got clients who are doing hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue in business. But they have to go and do something. If they don't show up or create something or be involved in something, that money is going to go in the other direction. And especially in this year, in 2024, or I should say, no, actually it seems like 2024, but in this short amount of time since this new administration has been in, I've seen those same $100 million annual revenue companies try to show up to their client the next day and say, oh, that contract has been cut. We no longer are servicing that contract. Boom, done. Question is now, do I have something that I can sell? That's, it's what's happening. Was this business all about that contract, or did you have other assets that's still moving? And so I think all of us should begin to ask that question. what percentage of our compensation is passive? Is just because we did something at some period of time, you're receiving residual income, and it's just happening. If the answer is zero, if the answer is zero, then this is definitely something worth all of us thinking about, adding to our 90-day challenge to say, how do I begin to do something that I can do it once or twice, or I can build something, but it begins the process of passive income. I had a conversation last week with, CEO of an organization, and had the same question. If you don't show up to work tomorrow, will that contract end? What happens when the contract ends? Where's the money coming from? Are you old enough to even receive retirement? And where that becomes your passive income, because that's most people, particularly folks in the middle class who work for corporations. They say, well, that's what my retirement is for. Okay, great. Are you retirement age? Can you start that right now? If you're not retirement age, where you can be penalized and start losing money just on the interest and penalties, is that a good move? What can you do today? And that's when we start thinking about Me LLC, being in a position to start and incorporate the things that you know and understand, flush out the details of understanding who your market is, and then figure out, how do I create something that if I do it once or twice, put it into operation, that money will come because I already did it. So good example of that is what we were talking about earlier on the real estate side. build a property, or you buy some land. Folks are, depending on how big your land is, folks will enter an engagement with you just to lease out your land. And that can provide you with income for the rest of your life. Some of these lease deals, and they'll lease it so they can do stuff on your land. So whether it be solar panels, or they're building something that they, you don't want to sell it to them, so they say, oh, well, we still need to do it because you have the best land for it, so I'll pay you X amount. So real estate is a great way to think about that. The business that I'm in, even on investment management insurance, somebody says, hey, yeah, I want to, you work with somebody and set up a 401k, or you set up a group life insurance policy, or a group health insurance policy. As long as that person's working and making and paying or getting payroll, you're getting paid. Or somebody give you $100,000 to invest, you're getting paid as long as that money is still invested. So you're finding these residual income type opportunities. Factoring that into your compensation is extremely important, because we're shifting into the more I read this tax bill, the more, all thing I could think about was, this is the time for self-sufficiency. We have to become more focused on self-sufficiency, which is a perfect. And then the next day, 4th of July, is the Founders Day for Tuskegee. Self-sufficiency is the cornerstone of Booker T. Washington's mission in life. His mission in life was to create a self-sufficient Black American community. That this is what we're going to have to do as we transition out of slavery and into the opportunity of participating in a democratic society in this country. We have to really, even regardless of what your age is, we have to begin the process of shifting from 100% of my compensation comes from my employer. To 1 year is maybe 100%, but the next year, it's 70%. And the next year it's 50%. And the next year it's 25%. And the next year it's 10%, right? And you have found a way to not only create a passive income revenue stream, but you found a way to grow it where it continues to grow because you now understand how to monetize and operationalize your thoughts, your ideas, your passions, your expertise. This is something worth investing time, your thought around during this 90-day challenge. And to be able to come out of the 90-day challenge with a clean, exciting, operationalize, or at least the steps to operationalize your ideas into an incorporated entity or an LLC or some type of entity, and and go to work with the purpose of creating a passive income operation. I can't highlight that more than anything, because you can create a new business for yourself and it just becomes a job that you own and you got to go and slave again, right? You're just slaving for yourself. And I see so many business owners, that's the case for them. They didn't run to work for, they're not people they're not good employees, right? So they can't go work for other people. So they have to start their own business, but they just went enslaved in their own business, right? And it's like, yeah, it's working hard, I'm working hard, but unless that business you've created something that will allow it to increase in passive income, where you can kind of begin the process of reducing your time and linear energy, but you're now increasing your ability to increase passive income because you've learned how to better operationalize that business and spend your time doing the things that you truly love, desire, all of that. We got this one life, and every day you see somebody. That's the thing. I was telling somebody the other day, we've had some in our area, folks who passed away who we knew and grew up with, and folks are calling, hey man, you going to the funeral? I'm like, listen, unless I absolutely have to go to funerals, I ain't going, right? I've been to enough funerals in my life, like, unless it's, real close family and close friends, I'm not coming, I'm not going. Because when I was younger, going to funerals all the time, because my granddad was a pastor, my dad was a pastor, we would show up, and they would call them to go and eulogize folks. I would just go, and I loved going to church. So I was like, all right, we're gonna have a good homegoing celebration. So, let's do the work of helping these people celebrate their loved one who passed away. So I went to a lot of funerals, but I was also young, and I was like, what? Death is so far away from me, it's whatever, right? And you live long enough to see a lot of people who pass, and you're like, uh-oh. It's like, okay, got it. So I'm like, listen, I'm not showing up to random people. I shouldn't say random, but anybody's funeral. But with that being said, it's very important to really spend your time doing the things that you care about and enjoy now. Don't wait. I'm going to do it when I get this amount of money. No, man. You may not, first of all, you may not ever get that amount of money, right? You may live a long life and never reach that amount of money. So let's just put that out there, right? You may never get to that income level and live to be, 95 years old and never have gotten to that income. So that's number one. Number two is, if there are things that that makes you happy, that you truly enjoy, like for whatever reason, why it makes you happy, for whatever reason that you truly enjoy, do it. I mean, do it. Just go ahead and do it. If these are things that bring joy to your spirit, that gives you energy, that you feel a certain way about, for whatever reason you feel that way about it, do it. Don't wait till whatever. Go ahead and do it. And we have to begin to shift our mindset to fulfillment in this life, impact, the things that you feel you were brought here to do, spending your time doing that, and not kicking the can down the road for some magical moment when everything's going to work out. Everything's going to be just right. This is that time. This is the right time, right? So I just wanted to share that. It's about 8:40 now and 20 minutes left on the call, but I wanted to open up the call. Anybody have any questions, comments, want to share? Didn't get a chance to jump in earlier, but I wanted to just, as we're in this 90-day goal setting challenge, I just really want us to also take a second and think about like what's really at the core, what's in the back of our mind a lot of times. And it's like, do I have the money to do this stuff? Like, do I have the time and do I have the money? That's what most people are trying to figure out. Do I have the time and do I have the money? And I want us to begin to reshape a conversation around time and money. Because everybody else is looking at time and money in one vein. I go to work, you pay me, boom, for that amount of time. I go to work, you pay me for that amount of time. I go to work, pay me for that amount of time. Hopefully I make enough money to one day do all the things that I want to do in retirement, right? So all that kind of stuff. I just want to change that conversation just for a second. Say that is one way. That is a way of doing it. But there's also other ways to pursue the fulfillment of time and money in your lifetime. Where you are right now in your time stamp of today, whatever age that is, there's other ways to think about it. As long as you keep waking up and breathing and waking up and breathing and waking up and breathing, there's another way. There are other ways to maximize the fulfillment of time and money in your lifetime. And so I just want to, again, use this call to have this kind of conversation. This kind of conversation may not work in another, meeting. We're just sitting around, shooting the breeze and talking. And I start talking about this. You're like, what is wrong with him right now? I'm watching TV, we're at a cookout or whatever. But so Mastermind calls are for to be able to dive in, and on a time when our thoughts are around the purpose of personal development. And Ty can tell you, we didn't talk about none of this stuff like we were on vacation. We were just chilling, just having a good time. But it's important to have those moments where you can lock in, be able to think outside the box and see, does this and can this apply to my life? And if it can, am I willing to actually pursue it? So let's take a second to open up the call now. Anybody have any questions, comments, observations? We'll open up the call now. Brother Morris, how you feeling, man?
Oh man, I'm feeling like when the 4th of July is on Friday and the Mastermind call is on Saturday.
Yeah, and your brother-in-law throws the party of the century. That's how. I wasn't even there, and I know he threw the party of the century. I'm a couple days late, brother. I was a couple days late.
Look,
Exactly. I
That's
get it.
how I'm actually feeling.
So
I'm actually feeling like that.
I know.
Exactly how I'm feeling.
So now I know what your win
So,
is. What your win is, you made the mastermind call. you actually made the call. Oh wow.
I don't want to go down the anger level that I went through when I realized at whatever time it was that this was occurring. God, you couldn't. I mean, a whole spectrum of come on, man.
Get yourself together, man.
Is this really the first Saturday? Come on, man.
This is the first Saturday, right?
Yeah, Booker T. Washington, Tuskegee, the folks, just come on, man. Let's just push this thing back, okay?
Let's push it back.
I was waiting.
I know it, brother. I know.
Oh, and that's funny. Yeah, but I wasn't gonna. I was gonna go into as a win. You're right, but that wasn't where I was going. Oh man. Okay, so as I'm listening to the beauty and ingesting and loving the comments on what has been happening in the 90-day challenge, and my fellow dream makers here, and I was trying to really reflect back on actual the framework of June. Like, okay, let me just go through June, and see what happened. Because I know, please, days, weeks go by, and when you're in the zone of just doing stuff, sometimes you're like, wow, I don't really know what happened.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're not aware, and awareness came up earlier in the thing. My term awareness and then actively aware, which I read a super powerful statement, and I was like, so what really happened? 90-day goal setting. Wow, that fits good in June, and all of the action for my big goal, and I would say for the 90-day challenge, and getting for this real estate development deal happened before June, right? So all the paperwork stuff went in, everything was in. So May was a big time. So maybe let's just say June 1st, right after the first call, or maybe before the first call. I don't know when the Saturday came when we started talking about it. I had done like a big push to get all the paperwork in and all that stuff, and we had hiccups and all that, but it went in. And then through June, it was all just cleaning up some paperwork issues, like submitting a couple more documents, and all that. But it was like it's been a lot of waiting, So the middle of July is when we're supposed to issue, the funding and all that, give award letters, see what's happened, right? And I'm definitely new to the government contracting kind of side of things. You know what I'm saying? And all that stuff. This is not my wheelhouse as far as time frames and all that. I'm used to phone call, agreement, check, deposit.
That's right.
No check, new phone call. Hey, you said you was gonna pay. What happened? All right, check, no check, new phone call.
Yeah.
It's very hands-on as far as like funding. I'm not like used to the whole, documentation package together. Now wait, okay, website, okay, committee members, meeting here, closed meeting, damn, who's this committee member? Waiting. Do you know this person? Would it be right to reach out? So the first thing I did once we put everything in, which was a violation, but I'm telling you what I'm used to, right?
Yeah.
I immediately emailed my contact, like, hey man, need to get on your schedule. He didn't respond. Cool. So how everybody's got the auto scheduling?
Yeah.
I put myself on the schedule.
There you go.
Yeah, I put myself on the schedule. Yeah, so so then he emails back like, hey, you know, I actually am not allowed to communicate with people that are in the pool of potential applicants, blah, 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 until I said, I'm going to have to take you off the schedule.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I see. So here we go. So now,
that's how this plays, right?
So in June, and that's not how it goes. So in June, you know, I kind of step one, learn a little more of the etiquette and the process of being involved in this particular arena, and then also been wrestling with the waiting game, you know, and then wondering and assessing could this piece have been better? Could we have, you know, crafted this particular portion of the application better? Could we have, you know, could I have selected, you know, better groups of properties and swatches of land that we are, you know, applying to get near the city and all this kind of stuff, right? So in going back and assessing, reassessing, and then what I did was took all that energy, and if any, you know me, but there's other people online who know me, you know, we've been in environments. I'm not the kind of person that is just like, oh, there's this pad over there just sitting down, man. He's been sitting over there the whole event, man. No.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in motion. I have to be in motion. And I don't think that, you know, not harnessing that energy, that suits me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Funny way of saying, you know, if I'm harnessing that energy now, you can just be walking around in circles, or you can be actively like harnessing this energy you have. So I've been harnessed it. So I went back in and not redid the application, but like put on some more stuff and in preparation for any questions that might come up. You know what I'm saying? So like, didn't just walk away and leave it. Said, okay, here we go. If you ask me anything or ask us anything about this, and that, we're going to readjust here. Or we know this. We have answers for this. We have answers for that. And trying to like, you know, simulate an interview, even though that's not required. So that has been helpful in the sense that when the award does come, I feel like I'm like maybe, you know, a step or two ahead of the curve when the award comes, because now there's a strategy and an additional plan to kind of get on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did with with my kind of impatience, if you will,
Yeah.
for answers. And so I feel like it is a win in the sense that I was able to harness it, because for the first, well, really after I got that email, I said, hey man, you can't talk to me, you know?
Yeah.
Because again, I thought, you know, like, oh, you do this, you do that. Okay, I follow back up with my man. My man tells me, yeah, I go and talk to this guy. They give me the okay, and then I kind of wait. But I already know. You know what I'm saying? But that's not the case at all. It's like a real waiting game. So that's kind of, and when I got that, I was discouraged in the sense that I felt handcuffed.
Mm-hmm.
I felt handcuffed, you know, because now I'm at the behest, or I'm at the, you know, they have me under some, like, waiting, you know, and I already told you how I feel about the whole getting money from the government anyway.
Yeah.
Now I'm under your thumb. And now you so, okay, now that's the way you're going to do me? You know what I'm saying? I'm free. June 19th, you know what I'm saying? I'm free. I treat a black man like this. Tell me where my money is. But
yeah,
that's not.
It's real.
That's a big problem. So, but I took all that, kicked that anxiety, and kind of bottled it up, and used it to kind of, you know, propel the situation forward. So there you go. That's my June.
Mm-hmm.
That was my June win. Yeah, you know, there you go.
Now let me ask you this, which really I would say comes back to, as we kind of look at our time and how we're spending our time on the things we're working on. Going back to that piece around passive income. Now, the good thing is we highlight like real estate can definitely become a passive income, investment and resource. Have you looked at what those numbers could look like for you, and how do those numbers make you feel? Is it a passive income opportunity? When it becomes that, how much of that passive income affects my bottom line in a way that I can say, okay, great. And when we look at it from the profitability and impact perspective, so it's like, yes, this is profitable, and yes, this is making an impact. Have you done that assessment?
Yes, and yeah. Which I say, which is unusual for me for the triple yeah.
Oh yeah,
and also unusual in the passive thing, because this particular project is 99% passive income once things get done. So this is not a development to sale. This is a development for rental properties, leasing properties, for homeless veterans, and then for veterans in general, and then the third person, third group is like this low income housing. So none of it is income that's not passive in the end. Now, we'll get the early development fees and all that kind of stuff for the money and the construction and all that. But the end use is a company that owns and controls, 400 plus units in the city, and there's rental income coming in from them. And then, we disperse that accordingly. Mm-hmm. And then if I act to take my percentage and go for liquidation, then, I have to get bought out for whatever the multiple is.
Yeah.
Or, that's kind of what it is. Yeah.
I love it. Listen, I just want to highlight real quick before we finish up on this, is that you had triple yeses on that and was able to articulate it. The impact of the work, the profitability of it, right? And so I just want I want to highlight the fact that this doesn't have to be a rocket science exercise. And I'm saying that to everybody who's listening now, who will listen later, to apply a profitable impact benchmark, or at least just a methodology to the work that you're doing, doesn't have to be rocket science. All it has to do is just say, is there a percentage of your compensation, whether it be with this project or just as a whole, that does have a residual income portion to it? And if it does, what percentage is that? Is it on pace to grow, or is it stagnant, or could we lose it? Because all of this conversation today is about self-sustainability. Me LLC, for the purpose of self-sustainability, being able to, and I even go one more step further when I think about this whole piece of self-sustainability and why it's important to factor in residual income into your business model. Because at some point in time in our life, we won't either want to do something, or we just physically won't be able to do something. And and we see so many examples of when a breadwinner is not able to earn, what happens to the family. When a mom or dad, somebody who's responsible for other people, is not able to earn money for whatever reason, health, just job market, whatever the case. And in the case where it's clear that our society is just moving to a more scaled down workforce, try to get more with less, that's just where we're going. There's so many factors. I mean, we talk on the government side, they're slashing. AI is slashing jobs. The whole attack on DEI and affirmative action is slashing opportunities. And so there's just a range of workforce attacks, if you will. And so the concept of going and getting a job, working there for 30, 40 years, and just having that forever, that our grandparents, parents, kind of went through, that model is shifting fast. And so instead of kind of panicking on that, why not take a step back and begin to just operationalize what you know and understand, and make sure that there's a passive income model built into it. If we want to have more detailed conversations on this, hit me up. Let's sit down. Let's talk it through. Go to the website, dreammakersnetwork.org, dreammakersnetwork.org. Schedule time to sit down, talk it through. This is important stuff. I mean, and I'll tell you, for me, this is a question that I ask myself. So if I'm asking myself, I should definitely ask you and all of us who are on this call, for the purposes of personal development. This topic and our societal changes, all of this is part of my personal profitability impact objective. To one, progress for me is this call. We're having this conversation. It's one thing when I have my one-on-one meetings with clients, but this call allows us to mass produce the conversation and to make sure that this profitable impact idea is on your thoughts as well. And as long as that seed has been sown, then now you can then take a step back and decide, assess, where am I in this situation? And what do I need to do about it? So let's lock in time. Go to dreammakersnetwork.org, schedule time to learn more about, talk this through in more detail. But never let a crisis go to waste. I definitely look at shift and change and all of that as investment opportunities, opportunities to grow, opportunities to shift, to gather what you know and understand and go to work, make a difference. We have all that capacity. But now it's just about getting organized and doing it in a way that adds value to your personal time, your personal money, and more importantly, I would say, the goals and dreams of how you see yourself being impactful in this community and just, I would say, just kind of your activities at large. And so, I have been reading a book. I want to make sure I share that. I started reading a new book called Profit First by Michael Michalowicz. Profit First by Michael Michalowicz. I would say a lot of my thoughts from today's call has come from that book, particularly because it talks about the fact that we're running businesses and operations and even your household, that we pay ourselves first. Start thinking about what that goes against everything that I've been taught in business, that you pay all these other things. No, you want to stay in business long. You want to have not even just business, even your household. If you aren't doing the things that matter to you, I mean, listen, I would say, take a look at your budget, all your expenses, and if there's no room in your budget for you to do the things that matter to you, you need to scrap some of that stuff that's on your budget. Because the last thing you want is to have your hard-earned money and your week and all the stuff you've been doing all week, day to day to day, to earn money, to go to things that you don't even see as valuable. Like you don't, say, oh, well, I got to pay these. Well, okay, well, let's take a look at it. Let's do an audit of what you are spending your money on. And is any of this stuff that you're spending your money on bringing you joy? Let's change the model of how to build a budget. Does it bring you joy? If it does not bring you joy, it's time to start really going through this thing with a fine-tooth comb and say, this doesn't bring me joy, this doesn't bring me joy, that doesn't bring me joy, get out. Right? And the fastest way to do that is to look at your fixed expenses, like utilities and things that you just have to pay. And this is the same amount, usually it's the same amount every month or so. And the stuff that's variable, those variable expenses, stuff that you don't have to pay, but they're in your budget for some reason. It's always good to start there, right? It's like, all right, what's in this variable budget? Like, what's in all this stuff? And I'm like, listen, I would much rather take from that bucket and spend that on my vacation. Right? Like that's what I want to do. I want to not have a heavy variable budget where, oh my God, most of my money is going to all that stuff. I want to be able to take from you and put it on the things that I really, truly want to do, that make me happy, that brings me joy, that gets me excited. Like that piece. And if we follow this whole profitable impact objective, you will find yourself feeling better about your day-to-day and getting more excited about your work and the things you're doing, all while having a growth plan for income. Compensation increasing because you're spending more time doing the things that matter to you because you were able to figure out a way to create profits by doing what you love to do. So just for the purposes of sowing seeds, I hope that the seed has been sown, that when you hang up today, that you're going to really take a step back and just think about what does profitable impact mean to you? What does a Me LLC mean, and how can it be structured with the things that you already know and understand? And who is your real target market with the things that you know and understand? Not just friends and family, but who is your real market? Like, who would pay millions of dollars to do to pay for what you know and understand? Who needs you? Think about it. I don't know anybody like that. I'm here to tell you, there is a group, a company, a person who will pay real money for what you already know and understand. My point is, build a business model around that group. Even though you've never, in your brain, you're like, I don't know who that could be. Well, let's lock in time to talk. Just book time and we can talk about this. I can tell you, I can confidently, by the time we finish our conversation, you will say, you know what? I didn't know that. I just didn't know. And that's just the facts of where we are. We have a lot of resources in this network that you scratching your head like, I wonder who can. A good example, me and Ty was sitting there talking in the vineyard just about what she's working on and the things that she is great at and what she's working on. And then I said, well, who are the funders? Who are the people who actually fund these kind of things? Do you know who they are? Now that I don't know. And I'm like, well, I know a couple organizations who have these big galas. I go to those galas and we look at we take a look at the brochure or the program, and they show all these people who gave $1 million to this cause, and the other ones gave $200,000 to the cause, and another one gave $100,000 to the cause, and another one gave $50,000. I'm like, these are the people who need to know you because they're already giving. Their names are in the book. Like, just look at the back page of the book and see all of these folks who have given to that thing that you are working on right now, you're building in your market, but they gave to a very similar organization in another market. And if they knew you were over here building something great, they would fund you too, right? So we have the resources in this network. Go to dreammakersnetwork.org and look at our partner page. I hadn't even updated that thing. I need to update it. But I really with a lot of your organizations, but just with the partners that are there now, we have the resources to address the stuff that you're thinking about. The gap that you're saying, I just don't know where that's going to come from or who's going to. We got it. We built this thing over the past 13 years to now it's a resource. People are utilizing it, man. We got organizations that were doing in one business and done really well in that business, but now with the shift that's happening in the market, we're able to jump into a new business, right? It's just so there with never let a crisis go to waste. With every challenge, there's great opportunity. This is where we are. So profitable impact. I want to make sure that that's fresh on your thoughts and mind as we finish up for the day. It's been a great call. It's definitely helpful. I've been thinking about this and wanted to share this with you guys over the past couple of weeks because it's, things are just been happening every day. And I'm like, I can't wait I got to write this down. I can't wait to talk about this with them. And I'm glad we did because I'm eager now to hear how you're going to apply this in your work, in the things that you're working on, and in the questions that you're going to come up with about the specific projects, thoughts, ideas that you're working on to help create that profitable impact work that you're doing now and going forward. So with that, have a great holiday weekend. Go Tuskegee, my Tuskegee family. Happy Founders Day. Celebrate this week. Enjoy the summer, man. Like, just really enjoy the summertime. Dive deep in with family as much as you can. We're headed up to Baltimore tomorrow, and we'll be there for most of the month. So my Baltimore folks, let's connect. Let's get together. Let's lock in time. It's just a lot of cool things happening. So I hope to see you guys over the next couple of weeks. And be blessed. Have a great week, and we'll see you next month.
This session is no longer being recorded.